Pompeii was not a doomed city. It was vibrant, noisy, and full of ordinary life. Located in southern Italy, near the Bay of Naples, Pompeii thrived under Roman rule. Its stone streets were crossed daily by merchants, slaves, soldiers, and entire families. The smell of freshly baked bread mixed with voices, animals, and the sound of public fountains. Nothing suggested that this routine was about to vanish forever. Homes were decorated with colorful frescoes, mythological scenes, and details that revealed status and ambition. There were bathhouses, taverns, markets, theaters, and temples. Pompeii was not poor or forgotten. It was a living reflection of Roman daily life, a place where politics, religion, pleasure, and labor existed side by side, a city confident in itself. The presence of Mount Vesuvius in the background caused no fear. To the inhabitants, it was simply part of the landscape, silent and seemingly harmless. No one understood its true nature. The concept of a volcano, as we know it today, did not yet exist. Vesuvius was seen as a fertile mountain, and its fertility helped enrich the region. In the summer of 79 AD, Pompeii followed its normal rhythm. People planned businesses, celebrations, and journeys. Children played in the streets. Political slogans were painted on the walls. The city lived entirely in the present, unaware that it had no future. Tomorrow felt guaranteed, but history rarely warns when it is about to change everything. For years, Mount Vesuvius showed signs that it was not asleep. Small earthquakes shook the region with increasing frequency. Houses creaked, walls cracked, objects fell. But none of this was unusual to the people of Pompeii. The city had already survived a major earthquake years earlier, and life simply went on. The Romans did not understand the nature of volcanoes. There was no science capable of explaining what happened beneath the earth. When the ground trembled, the explanation was religious. The gods were believed to be restless. Sacrifices, prayers, and rituals were considered enough. Danger was interpreted as spiritual, not physical. Over time, the warnings became part of daily routine. Cracks in buildings were quickly repaired. Wells dried up, water levels changed, but no one fled. Pompeii was too wealthy to abandon, and Vesuvius, silent and calm, seemed to confirm that confidence. Nothing visible suggested an imminent threat. In the summer of 79 AD, even the most recent tremors were ignored. People continued their daily activities, markets remained open, temples were still full. The city believed it controlled its own fate, and that belief made it vulnerable. That morning, nothing seemed different. The sun rose over Pompeii as it always had. The streets filled with people, carts, and animals. Bakers lit their ovens, merchants opened their shops. Daily life continued, steady and familiar. The world appeared stable. Some residents noticed light tremors during the night. Cups had fallen, doors had creaked. But these signs caused no alarm. Pompeii was used to minor earthquakes. Nothing suggested that this day would be different. Normality was deceptive. Around midday, a violent explosion shattered the silence. A deep sound echoed across the mountains. From the top of Mount Vesuvius, a massive column of ash began to rise. It grew rapidly, forming a dark and threatening cloud. Still, many did not understand what they were seeing. It was something never witnessed before. Some believed it was a distant phenomenon. Others watched with curiosity. Few felt immediate fear. Pompeii hesitated, and that hesitation would cost everything. As the cloud expanded, the city was still there, alive, confused, exposed. Soon after the initial explosion, the situation changed rapidly. Ash began to fall from the sky, at first lightly, almost curiously. Soon it became heavier, covering streets, rooftops, and bodies. Sunlight weakened. Daylight faded before its time. Panic spread through Pompeii. The air grew thick and difficult to breathe. Burning stones fell onto the city, breaking roofs and injuring people. Screams echoed through the narrow streets. Families were separated in desperate attempts to escape. Some sought shelter inside their homes. Others ran without direction. Confusion took over the city. Streets were blocked by debris and deep layers of ash. Animals, terrified, ran among the crowds. The ground trembled beneath their feet. With every passing minute, conditions worsened. Normal life had completely vanished. When night finally fell, there were no stars in the sky. Darkness was absolute, broken only by lightning within the ash cloud. Pompeii realized, too late, that it was trapped. The city was no longer fighting to survive. It was fighting only to endure the inevitable. The end had begun. As night progressed, Pompeii ceased to be a city in motion. The noise, the screams, and the frantic movement slowly disappeared. The weight of accumulated ash caused roofs to collapse. Streets became impassable. The air suffocated any attempt to escape. The city began to stop. Many residents sought shelter wherever they could. Some hid inside houses, corridors, and storage rooms. Others tried to flee, carrying belongings and children. But time had run out. The continuous fall of ash and toxic gases overcame the human body. Pompeii was defeated in silence. When volcanic activity finally decreased, nothing remained in motion. The city lay buried under meters of ash and stone. Buildings, streets, and people were frozen in time. Pompeii was not destroyed by a single instant of impact. It was slowly suffocated and then forgotten. The dawn that followed found no life, only a city sealed beneath the earth, a place where time had abruptly stopped. Pompeii did not collapse into ruins that day. It was sealed, turned into an invisible collective tomb. After the eruption, Pompeii vanished from the Roman world. There was no rescue and no reconstruction. The city had been buried too deeply. Over time, its exact location was forgotten. Mount Vesuvius returned to silence, and Pompeii became only a rumor. Centuries passed. Fields were cultivated over the ash. Roads crossed the region. Cities grew nearby, unaware of what lay beneath their feet. Pompeii was not a visible ruin. It was a gap in memory. The few written records mentioned a destroyed city, but without detail. No precise maps. No survivors to tell the full story. Time erased names, faces, and destinies. The tragedy remained buried, literally. For nearly 1,500 years, Pompeii remained motionless, protected and imprisoned by the ash that killed it. The world moved forward, empires rose and fell, and Pompeii remained intact, invisible, waiting to be found. In the 18th century, Pompeii's silence was finally broken. Accidental excavations in the region revealed buried walls, objects, and streets. What seemed like ordinary ground concealed an entire city. Little by little, Pompeii returned to the light, not as a traditional ruin, but as a moment frozen in time. The past resurfaced intact. Archaeologists faced something never seen before. Complete houses, household items, political inscriptions, traces of daily life abruptly interrupted. These were not just ancient buildings, they were lives preserved in silent detail. Pompeii began to tell its own story. During the excavations, human casts emerged. Empty spaces left by the buried victims were filled with plaster. The shapes revealed final positions, gestures of protection, despair, and waiting. Without words, these forms explained what texts could not. The tragedy ceased to be abstract. It became human. Pompeii did not return as a living city. It returned as a witness, a warning preserved by its own destruction. Each uncovered street reinforced an uncomfortable truth. The city died in a single day, but it would never be forgotten again. Pompeii is not merely a city destroyed by the past. It is a message preserved through time. Walking through its excavated streets reveals ordinary people, not heroes, not emperors, but lives abruptly interrupted. That is what makes Pompeii unique. The city revealed how Romans lived, worked, and believed. It showed simple habits, social inequalities, and everyday choices, things rarely recorded in grand historical narratives. Pompeii reminds us that history is not made only by political decisions. It is made by ordinary people and by unexpected consequences. Pompeii also teaches about human fragility in the face of nature, overconfidence, denial of warning signs, and the illusion of control. All preceded the disaster. Vesuvius did not strike without warning. It was ignored. And that mistake cost an entire city. Today, Pompeii stands as a silent warning, a place where the past speaks without words, where every stone reminds us that progress does not mean invulnerability. The city died in a single day, but its lesson crossed centuries, and it remains alive. Pompeii did not end on the day of the eruption. It continues to exist every time someone walks through its streets, every time an object is uncovered, every time the city's silence is observed carefully. Pompeii does not speak loudly, it whispers. The city reminds us that history does not happen only in palaces. It happens in simple homes, markets, and ordinary streets. Pompeii's tragedy was not only geological, it was human, shaped by choices, overconfidence, and denial. as so many tragedies throughout history are. Mount Vesuvius is still there, silent, watching, just as Pompeii watches the modern world, not as a dead ruin, but as a permanent witness. The city died in a single day, but it left a question that crosses centuries. What are we ignoring today? And when history decides to speak again, will we be ready to listen, or will we repeat Pompeii's silence?